feminist, manifest that you're supreme. You are great, taking wherever you've been. Your vision is better than anything you've seen. Standing where many have suffered and been grieved. Woman, don't bow down. Don't let them silence you.
It's a feminist thing. This is a space where we explore and converse on various topics that seek to dismantle the patriarchy. Our motto, as always, is forward, fearless, and feminist. Dumelang bagaetsho. As usual, I have my feminist fellow friends with us, Fina Kodisang, Niko Shikwambani, and Tando Kumete.
Yes.
Today we are looking at the power of social media, online naming and shaming, the pros and the cons, the reasons and the dangers. In addition, we discuss the abuse in the film and television industry. I'm curious as to how do you use social media in your feminism? Have you used social media in your feminism?
Of course.
For what purposes I use it, because I understand how powerful it is, and the way we engage with the young people, that we reach young women, we use social media and we reach them, you know, at the core of the issues they face.
What I like is that, particularly with feminism, is that positively it's given people who didn't otherwise have a voice a very powerful medium to be able to express themselves.
And I agree.
We've been able to take the conversations out of the newsrooms.
Yes.
People are able, ordinary people are able to set the agenda. And we're able to bring attention to things that other people may not have thought to prioritize. So on that level, I think it's been positive.
I mean, I have used social media for those very reasons, Khomozo, because I think that it's given a woman and feminists a platform, you know, and it's a tool to write their own narratives, to share their own opinions, because we also know that women are underrepresented in the media, you know? But also to archive, you know, their thoughts about critical events that have happened. I mean, look at the hashtag #WeAreNomzamo. Remember when the media was painting one narrative about Mama Winnie's legacy, and women, you know, stepping up and saying, actually, this is not how we want her to be remembered, you know? It's happened with taxi rape, the hashtag #MeToo, you know? It's created indexes that will live online forever.
A substantial portion of my own feminist legacy and history and evolution is actually captured on social media. So I remember starting off as a young person who was just ventilating the issues that I was just uncomfortable with. And it was all over the place, you know. But then I realized how much social capital and power I had. So people would actually come to me and either, you know, speak to me or ask me for advice or confront me about the things that I'd written about. Then I realized that, wow, I could actually influence people, and I wanted to contribute to people's lives positively, right? Which is why I'm in law to begin with. And so what I started doing is taking my social media seriously and making sure that I'm very intentional when I put stuff up, you know, and make sure that everything has a purpose for dismantling white heteropatriarchy to such an extent that people actually come to me anonymously to ask me to raise funds for them, to ask me to assist them with issues of abuse, or to give them my legal opinion on social, you know, certain issues. So I've become kind of a soft landing pad for people who are seeking justice, or who are seeking, you know, assistance, or who are in need.
It's so great you say that, because social media also allows us to hold corporations and personalities to account. So that we can, whether it's a corporation, who was it? Can't name the company, I suppose. The ones with their hair, where the black woman's hair was bad and the white woman's hair was good. But what I'm curious about is, have any of you ever named and shamed anybody on social media?
Oh yes, I've done it, including that corporation. I've named and shamed institutions of higher learning who've protected rapists and enabled rape culture. Anything to do with white heteropatriarchy, you name it, individuals, institutions, organizations, I've named and shamed unapologetically.
Akso name and shame anyone, but as Soul City, we have issued media statements in support, you know, of people who are naming and shaming.
Let me be sponsor and find out hore ena arenka the term of the day.
Jaka khale ra go amogela Pontsho.
Ke a leboga Osfina.
O montle today.
Yeah. Dress to kill. With a bang.
Yeah, with the
Mara, ke re tsogile yana.
Re tsogile yana.
Re tsogile yana.
Re bua ka eng ka jeno?
Ka jeko a ke gantse re bua ka dilo tsa social media kapa a ka re bitsa ka tsona mafaratlhatlha a boitapoloso.
What?
Mafaratlhatlha a boitapoloso. That's social media. Mara lefoko la ka jeko ka ntlha gore re bua ka mafaratlhatlha a go boitapoloso ke defamation of character. A ke re la itse le tlo tshwara le tlo sekasaka dikgang tsa gore naming and shaming mo social media. Yaanong ga re ka bua ka defamation of character gore ke eng? Ka Setswana re lebeletse ke go senya motho leina go sena bosupi. Bosupi e le evidence.
Of course.
So to slander a person's name without evidence kapa go bua maka ka motho ke yone defamation of character ha re ka e bua ka Setswana.
So the critical thing, go sena bosupi.
Go sena bosupi.
What about you, Tando? How would you term it in isiZulu?
So with isiZulu, I'd say that usukumehlisa isithunzi somuntu, right? So isithunzi in isiZulu is like your dignity and your honor and your reputation. And ukwehlisa is to reduce, you know, or to undermine or to compromise. So yeah, that's kind of how I would put it. A lot of people think that just saying something that is uncomfortable is defamation. That's not true. It actually has to be proven through court process that what you said does not align with the reality of what that person actually has done.
Yeah.
So that's also very important.
Mara ke rata ka gore e re o senya leina la motho. Ora wa mo destroy motho. Ne?
O sena bopaki.
O sena bopaki.
Yeah.
So ha ona le bopaki o ra ra mo senyi.
I feel like linguistically and in terms of our lived experiences, feminism has kind of been struggling to come together, you know, and for us to share this space where we're grounding feminism in our linguistic articulation so it can be real for us and tangible. So thank you so much, sis.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been an amazing season and I think we need to down with the patriarchy baton.
Let us know how you interpret defamation of character in your language. Connect with us on our social media platforms using the social media handles at the bottom of the screen. After the break, we discuss why women turn to social media to name and shame perpetrators. Oskaya Hope.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
Naming and shaming of perpetrators online has become a powerful and controversial method for victims and survivors to bring social consequences on perpetrators of violence and abuse. Our roving reporter Ntsako Mhlanga spoke to young people who have done just this. Let's check it out.
Would you guys tell your story on social media?
I actually have shared my story, and the reason I did was because as a child, you don't have actual context for what has happened to you. You can't really name it, and that really affects you. So now as an adult, being able to share that, I know there's 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 16-year-olds on those social media platforms, and that way it gives them context into, oh, that happened to me as well. So now I can actually contextualize it.
Yeah, I did speak on my story, and I think it really jolo because I wanted to move people out of their comfort spaces.
I mean, I find it very amazing, Wuti. A woman can literally now just tell a story. She can wake up one day and be like, as in, Senkat said and joked and then tweet, and I'm going to write it.
Now it's becoming useless every day. We fight for the same thing. The consistency stops. It becomes a trend, and then we stop.
Yeah.
Another woman is killed.
A registered sex offenders list is going to be released in SA. But Twitter actually had the list.
Yeah.
Whoever's on Twitter knows the list.
Yeah.
And what is your response to the list?
For me, I think the list, I think it's pointless. And I'll tell you why. I think having the list on Twitter is pointless because here's Usiabonga who stays here, and there's Utsako who stays across the street.
Sure.
We're tweeting about the same thing. We're living in the same neighborhood, but we don't talk to each other. then it's pointless because we might expose the same, let's say, abuser. But what are we doing? What are we doing on Twitter? Because there's no one who's sitting there on top of Twitter and say, oh, okay, Tsako, you are guilty.
Yeah.
No one is sitting there. We all say, yeah, he's wrong or she's wrong, but there's no one who's going to take authority of that.
When you guys shared your stories after 3 years, and with respect to Guti, guys, you need healing also. You need time to process them. How did it make you feel?
I felt lighter. I felt lighter because I also enabled a space where young girls also DM'd and told me, Naledi, this happened to me. And what I did with my story is that I spoke of the literal details, what happened. And you find that in many rape stories, it's, yeah, I was raped by my uncle and, you know, it left me emotional and what so forth. And fine, I get that, I respect that, but for young girls to actually come and tell me the literal details, it was really touching, you know. So it made me feel lighter. I'm actually free. I'm free. You know, I feel authentic, both in the society and being an individual myself.
Like, what drove you? Was it hashtag? Was it maybe omunye umuntu? Was it on Twitter sharing the story? What drove you to share?
Wow, I was thinking, mine was very impulsive. So I can't remember if it was an actual hashtag, but it was, people were just sharing their stories and I was like, oh yeah, that happened to me. And I was like, wow, you can't think of it that way. I think, let's actually think about that. And then once I did, I was like, okay, put it out there. I think it could actually change someone's life. So that's what really pushed me.
Impulse.
So I did it during the death of Ulunga Lukwasa. You know, I saw that there was a lot of attention on it, and I used that opportunity to say, Naledi, you also have a story to tell. You know, the response was there. It was positive, negative, but you consume it all.
We certainly consume it all.
Lady's story, you know, because a lot of times young people are afraid to come out, and once you do, you actually liberate others. You give others freedom to say, in actual fact, I'm going to come out, because we did discuss how a lot of times cases go unreported, you know, because people have lost faith in the system. But this is helping them to actually come out, and
telling your story. It can be different for different people. So for some people, it feels empowering. It does all of that. Some people feel very disempowered. But I must say that the reason why those who do feel empowered is because, number one, you're no longer just reduced to a number. Because the fact is that patriarchy would just have you all just be a number and not be a face, not be anything that's tangible. So you become more than just that, you break out of that. The second thing is that it's about breaking the silence. Patriarchy thrives with silence. It loves silence, you know? And so I feel like it helps, you know, it helps for those people who are only empowered by actually speaking out about it. But you mustn't shame people who don't want to and are not empowered by speaking out.
My worry, and I could agree with everything that's been said so far, but my discomfort comes with things like fake news, or if somebody is trying to destroy somebody's reputation without any tangible proof. So I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite to say, like, I see how this can empower women, and sometimes it's your last and only form of recourse to any kind of justice for what happened to you. And on the other side is, what if it's not true? And what if we crucify people who don't deserve it? There's like, I think 3% of women who make false charges and all of that. But social media is a whole other beast. That's in court. That's in court, right? What social media does is it just, I don't need to go to court. I can just make a claim on my cell phone. So I'm kind of torn between the two.
I disagree. Look, if someone says that they've been raped without naming the perpetrator, then for me as a feminist, that's enough information for me to form a barrier of help and of sisterhood for that person. It's not always about naming and shaming a particular perpetrator. Sometimes it's just about someone telling their story, telling their truth, and, you know, bringing the feminist army to the forefront to protect that person.
And, you know, like what the young man says in the clip, that he said he thought that the list, creating a sexual offenders list online was useless, And yes, and I hear you, Khomozo, the reason why some victims do that, and I think the reason why feminists need to support this movement is simply because we need to show solidarity and resistance online.
Yes.
And sometimes that there's value in that enough.
Without a doubt.
Centered approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Listen, we're going to carry on this conversation more with somebody who's quite a firebrand, and I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. Her name is Mona El-Tahawy. Don't go away. Joining us now, we have Mona El-Tahawy, a feminist giant, author, commentator, and complete disruptor of patriarchy online to share her activist journey and the impact of the hashtag movement. Mona, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you.
Mona, please tell me and us and our viewers, who made you into a feminist?
Well, I think my first feminist role model has to be my mother. From a very young age, I was raised by a very independent, very strong, very capable woman who told me that education and being powerful and being knowledgeable and always being independent and autonomous from men was the way to be in life. And so if I could say, even though my mother would never say this word, if I can say that my very first example of the patriarchy was my mother, even though she would never say that particular F word.
Mona, how did your feminism then translate onto social media and the online space?
For me, social media is one of the many weapons that I use against patriarchy, because I believe that social media is as real as the outside world. So I fight patriarchy in the so-called real world and in the virtual world.
Social media and the hashtag trends have really given women a collective platform to fight. But has this trickled down, Mona, in terms of the impact for ordinary women on the ground?
I would take examples both from Egypt and the United States, where I moved in the year 2000 and I'm now a citizen. Because in both those countries, you will see that especially for the most marginalized voices. And when it comes to patriarchy, feminists are often the most marginalized voices. Many movements that have translated onto so-called real world movements and changes began online. So I'm thinking, for example, in Saudi Arabia, where I grew up as a teenager, so I include Saudi Arabia with Egypt as well, the women's protests against the driving ban began for many women as a hashtag. In Egypt, the current protest against the imprisoning or the jailing of women who use TikTok, there is a movement online to have them released. And in the United States, of course, we are in the midst of a Black-led revolution called Black Lives Matter. And that was launched by 3 queer Black women, feminists, queer feminists. And they launched this in 2013, and it's now a full-blown revolution. So hashtag activism and hashtag feminism is absolutely important. And those who try to minimize it are scared of its impact, because we as feminists have to fight patriarchy on every front available to us.
Yes, Mona, you speak quite often about how you want patriarchy to fear feminism. Is this something that you think we can achieve online?
Patriarchy is universal, whether in South Africa or in Canada, where I'm speaking to you from now, or my country of birth, wherever, patriarchy is universal. And our feminist war, because that's what it must be, against patriarchy must be universal. And for us as feminists to succeed, there's no more time to be nice. There's no more time to be polite. I'm a huge admirer of the Ugandan feminist, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, who has been imprisoned several times by the Ugandan dictatorship because of her in-your-face feminism. Dr. Stella Nyanzi says, I do not have weapons, I do not have tanks, I do not have grenades, but I have my words. So I will take the war to patriarchy everywhere. No more being nice. Patriarchy must fear us, because we have had enough of patriarchy's crimes. No more nice feminism. Nice, polite feminism achieves nothing. This is a war for our survival, and patriarchy must fear feminism.
Mona, what do you think is the next level of the hashtag movement?
I think we must unite, and I think we must see other feminists. And I'm not saying unite with all women. This is ridiculous nonsense, because there are some women who I call them foot soldiers of the patriarchy, who benefit from the patriarchy. I will unite with women fighting to destroy the patriarchy. So we must look for each other around the world. I was in South Africa last year. It was a great honor of mine to speak at the Abantu Festival. At Abantu, I met fellow feminist revolutionaries, fellow radical feminists. So I look for radical feminist revolutionaries around the world, and we inspire and we unite and we form camaraderie online, and we take that to women who are not online, but we tell them we are your comrades and we are your sisters. And this is how, right now I'm following the great revolution in Nigeria against police brutality, against their police unit, and I'm seeing feminists at the forefront of this. So this is how we take the hashtag. Right now it's called SARS Must End. We take hashtags, we make them universal, we make them real, and we take them into people's homes. Just like television is in home, social media is in the home. And we look patriarchy in the eye and we will say, I am going to destroy you, because I'm not polite, I am a vulgar woman, because patriarchy is not polite. Patriarchy is more than vulgar. Patriarchy is threatening our lives every day. If women are raped at terrible rates every day, no country can say it had a revolution in which, in this same country now is called the rape capital of the world. Rape is universal. It's not specific to South Africa. But we have to ask, who was the revolution for? Who did the revolution liberate?
Yes.
Because if women are still being raped, if women are still being hung from trees, then there was no revolution for them. This is where our feminist revolution comes in. And this is where we look patriarchy in the eye and we say, be ready for the feminist revolution, because that's the revolution that will liberate everyone. Women, queer people, trans women, cis people, non-binary, everyone.
Amen to that. And just before we let you go, Mona, what needs to change in order for us to really, truly dismantle the patriarchy?
We definitely need a global feminist revolution that begins with what I call feminism in 3D. Because this is also how I connect my work online with especially young women and young queer people who want to fight the patriarchy in all aspects of their lives, and perhaps they can't be in a protest, perhaps they come from a very conservative home, perhaps they can't be out as queer or non-binary or trans. And I tell them feminism in 3D is defy, disobey, and disrupt. Find a way every day in your life to practice feminism in 3D, defy, disobey, disrupt, and understand patriarchy is not about men. It's not against men. That's a ridiculous notion. We are fighting against patriarchy. I want our male comrades, brothers, and friends to understand patriarchy hurts them too, which is why I say I want much more than equality with men. Equality with men is not enough, because men themselves are not free. And I want to be free.
Well, thank you so much, Mona, for always bringing the fire.
Booa, Mona, booa! Booa! Yes, always.
Thank you.
The patriarchy always.
Thank you so
you,
much
Mona.
for always bringing the fire. It was such a pleasure to have you joining us today. Don't go away. Up next, we have Allies Corner. Remember to like, share, and comment on our social media platforms.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
Today, we have been in conversation on the power of using social media as a tool to expose perpetrators. But what are the consequences for perpetrators? Nteto Chimese, our ally, is here to discuss this with us. Puti, welcome. All right.
It's obvious that women are naming and shaming online based on the premise that there's a failure, a genuine failure in their perception, and I think, you know, quite honestly, of the justice system. So why is it that there is little to no consequences, especially for powerful men who have raped and abused?
I think for me, the lack of consequences linked to how I think we understand justice. I think people, we look at justice more as a legalistic thing, to say, okay, let it go to court and what, which is something I wouldn't want to comment on.
Yeah.
But my sense of justice in terms of any movement is a basic human rights struggle.
Yeah.
So the sense of justice then stops being a legalistic thing. Usually the default position, if I were to be accused of having done something, my friend's default position is likely to say, no, umthetho siyamazi ayikho.
Yeah.
Even if sometimes maybe I actually have done that thing. And it's also very difficult because of the legal implications, I suppose.
Why then is there a continuation of the support of perpetrators? Why then is there a continuation of their employment, especially at the expense of someone who's come forward to say that they've been abused? So you'd rather have a person who's been victimized, fired from a set, for example, or fired from a particular space, and we allow the perpetrator to continue functioning as per normal.
Patriarchy is not good for us as men. Firstly, because it dehumanizes us, even at the level of how do we provide support to victims and the vulnerable members of society. Our sense of justice generally as men is low insofar as taking up arms when something is happening. To an extent, it's not affecting us individually. So there is work that perhaps I think we need to do to heighten our sense of justice as men. Because if there's a machita tina bisifuna ukuphelisa rape in this country, we would. I was facilitating a discussion amongst young men in the Buffalo City municipality, and one man said to me, man, the problem is that a lot of us have got dicey sexual encounters with women that we may not have been clear about whether or not we got consent. So he was being honest in that safe space where we try and push to save our fate. So at which point are we going to take up the responsibility of dealing with rape and in this country? Nepra code, I mean, you snitch, you get stitched. I mean, there are consequences for snitches. There are people I know personally who have been to jail, who are accused of killing people that they never killed, but they were afraid to say who killed the person. I know SAPS is said to be the most corrupt institution of government in this country, but even as communities, we know who sells drugs in our communities. We know who the rapists are. But no one wants to take responsibility. And one thing that many men will not tell you, we are also scared of the killers and the rapists.
Of course.
As amachit. But that's not something we're going to say.
Yeah. So I wanted to touch a bit on this one, the resources, because we know that powerful men have resources that they use, to interdict women when they go and lay claim, and women sometimes don't even have those resources to fight back. How do we balance these things?
Society is structured in such a way that as men, we have functional power. It doesn't matter how poor, unemployed I am as a black man, but I don't worry about, for instance, being raped when I'm jogging. I worry about being raped if I go to jail. And yet women are scared of being raped by people they know every day. They're not in jail. So I find that the conversation that we are not having as a country in terms of even our own activism is that our activism has to be intentional and be clear that we want to heal our communities, our family. We know who the rapists are in our families. And if that person is supporting the family in one way or the other, or has got status in the family, they are not gonna abazo Jesus uzotwa mayithetho is ngokwasemaphaya ekhaya kuthiwe masiyithethe isingwevu ifihlwe, and yet I'm known as a rapist. So I feel there has to be investment in a generation of men to have a heightened sense of justice, because siyayazi when white men oppress us. We know this thing. You don't have to tell us anything as women. I feel as a machita, we fail to understand, as much as I am not a rapist, women are still getting raped. On social media, men are trash. I don't like that, because I don't feel every day I feel like I'm trash, Mina as an individual. But I also understand that that thing is not about me. And if I claim to care about social or justice in general, I should not care about justice when it affects me, in the sense of I should not then say, I am worried about women saying we are all trash, and I mean, I don't feel like I'm trash. And Amachita, one other thing which is part of patriarchy, there's a lot of men who feel aggrieved, rightfully so. I mean, we saw a case in Mpumalanga of a woman who had said they were raped, and it was found in a court of law that she was fined 500 rands. You should have seen the enthusiasm with which that thing was discussed by men. It was almost to take that one incident to say, and therefore, women are actually falsely accusing us. And I understand that, but I also say to Amachita, but think about it. What is the consequence in terms of shame that comes with saying you were raped? Do you think that women would just go and say they were raped if they were not? I'm not saying they are not those women who do that. So Amachita, we also need to stop Lenduguti if we feel aggrieved because there are personal struggles, therefore just because we have this personal struggle, then that means collectively women have lost the legitimacy of their cry.
Look, I'm so happy that we're able to, or you were able to liken, you know, sexism and this type of abuse to racism.
Yeah.
You know, it really boggles my mind why men can't understand that the same violence that, you know, they feel like with racism is really the same violence that we feel with, you know, patriarchy and sexism and misogynoir. And so I'm so delighted and happy to hear you say that there's really linkages between the two, and that maybe the work needs to be us grooming all human beings, all young human beings, to see all of these types of violences as being equal and to dismantle it in that way, you know, and to start appreciating the injustices of this type of, you know, wrongful behavior. So thank you so much, Putin. Much appreciated. South Africa, it's now over to you. You decide what kind of country you want to create. Please share your reflections with us on our social media platforms.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
It's a feminist thing, Bagaij. The film and television industry has always been known for its glitz, glamour, and celebrity lives, but not all that glitters is gold. There is a dark underbelly to the industry. Numerous women have taken to social media to expose the rampant sexual abuse and gender inequality. Joining us now is activist and filmmaker Dr. Bev Dietzi to discuss this further. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting
Dr.
me.
Palisa.
Thank you for inviting me, Kalaboha. I am so honored to be here.
Dr. Bev, you know, you've been an activist over the years, right? And we're speaking about social media and the use of social media, what feminism is looking like on social media, you know? How has your activism changed because of this advent?
Of social media. You know, actually, we need to rebrand feminism. We need a new marketing strategy. Because everybody jumps on a bandwagon and says this is, we feminist enjani. And now we are all nitpicking at each other like, who is a better feminist than who? Kante, what is this feminism? We need to rebrand. I've become very careful of how I say what I say, and I'm very deliberate with the things that I say on social media, because and when I'm wrong, I hope I am that person that can say, hey, okay, Bafwetu, I was wrong, right? Because we need to be able to take that kind of responsibility with everything that we say and do. But I really honestly think that social media has become this platform where it's a free for all. Everybody jumps on and has an opinion. And unfortunately, can I say this on
No.
No. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you need to be using it all the time just because you have one, but just because, you know, people, you can go on Google and think that you know something. I think for me, my definition of feminism has not changed. My definition has never been about equality. It has never been about equity either, because actually we should be going for equity, not equality, right? My definition of feminism has always been about ending the patriarchy. And once that goal is clear, or we are here to end the patriarchy, anything that feeds the patriarchy, you can then see it.
Which means that maybe equity might not even be the thing. But anyway,
it's a whole, you see what I mean? Because it is, for me, about ending the system that was designed for our own downfall. And not just as women. Men too, are oppressed under this patriarchy. Mona Alwad, one of my favorite feminist giants, she constantly says, why would I want to be like a man where they themselves are not free?
Bev, somebody or meeting for nakwetele. I'm really mortified and embarrassed to say, when I first heard them, I was quite skeptical. It's only after two of women of our age that we know, two women that of impeccable character, when they wrote their testimonials that, yes, this man is a predator, that I finally believed the women. How did you react? What was your first reaction? I hope it wasn't as bad as mine.
You know, I think on the one hand, I thought, I'm not surprised because I had been in different settings with said person. And I have this thing where guys treat me like one of the guys. And a lot of the time they then kind of continue their behavior because I'm one of the guys and I'm supposed to just go along. And then once in a while, I say, Marabafwetu, what's going on here? And then it's like, then they remember, oh, Konche, this is actually not one of us, you know? And so I'd seen different things, but I started, I think maybe a few years back, where I stopped being shocked. Because I started realizing, if every single woman in my life, every single without fail, no matter what age, has been sexually assaulted or has been harassed in one way or another, that means there are very many of our brothers that I can't even begin to pinpoint who are actually just, you know,
It really
it's such a norm.
so much.
It's such a norm that I've stopped being shocked.
Industry you know, that creates such a fertile ground for the sexual exploitation.
I think power. I think, you know, proximity to power. Sometimes I think that there are people who get into the industry just for the power. Whether you have the talent, whether you have the connections, it doesn't matter. As long as you know, as soon as I enter the space, I'm a baby bazos. Stock. You know, I feel like it's an industry that is rife with everybody who knows you get in here for you, especially in the gender roles and the power dynamics that get played out, is that there are women who enter the space with a clear understanding that I have to use all my wiles in order to get to where I need to get to, and those men who know that as soon as I get into the space, I can get whatever I want and promise whatever it is.
Dr. Bev, so when we started this season, right, we asked the question, each one of us answered the question of what made us feminists. I said that it was ironically old white women, in as much as I wanted to dismantle white heteropatriarchy. So can you tell us what made you a feminist?
My grandmother. My mother.
Yeah.
That's easy. I grew up in a maternal household. I grew up with women, and everybody around me was a woman, and I saw the power that is woman. And then I would watch as Malume comes through the door and how everybody must change. And when I saw that performance, I realized, wait, what performing in order to fulfill society? Because I saw this change happen every single day, every time. To a point where this young man from the neighbors in he was 14. My mother started going, I was like, hi. Here's this powerhouse of a human being kowtowing to a little boy just because he has a different appendage. And so watching that and seeing that made me kind of realize, because they were also really powerful in the house. Everything that needed to be done was done. This is a man's job. This is not. I saw their power. I saw how my grandmother would step out every time a woman screams outside with no care what's going to happen to her. You know, that's where I saw my feminism. At the time, it wasn't political. It was as political as the fact that I did not want to see the abuse that I was seeing happening in my community, happening in my own household as well.
All the time, renale backlash, you know, so much negativity. Mara, you were honored with a PhD, and it's something to celebrate. So tell us, how did you feel, you know, for your activism, not for anything but your activism?
You know,
that's such a powerful thing.
It took a long time for me to actually accept it. I think, you know, when you live your life doing what you do and then you accept, you know, I'm like my grandmother, I'm like my cousins, I'm like my aunt. We work and we just continue the work. The Graduate University recognized not just my activism work, but the work I do in TV and film that has always kind of been about the advancement of either story, women's story, feminist story.
Yo, Dr. Bev, ra go leboga, ra go rata.
Ke lebogile.
O ba dumedise ko gaene.
Ke tla ba dumedisa. Ke le rata bjang. Ka fela lona keng. Ke le rata bjang. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and keep up the good fight. Share your thoughts on how we can use the hashtag movement to help advance feminism.
Don't let them silence you. Don't let them silence you.
Welcome back to It's a Feminist Thing. We've been discussing alternative forms of justice for women because the justice system sometimes fails them. So
A fail of any system will necessitate a response, right? Women would want to find alternative ways of finding their own justice and claiming the power. But I think in doing so, we must also remember that even our own freedoms don't come without limitations. We must make sure that as we exercise our freedom to speech, freedom to movement, we also do it in a way that is not discriminatory and hurtful to others, because then we are also perpetuating. Yeah.
And in Tori Buang, when I feel like that's all it is. Take responsibility for your actions, whichever way. If you're going to be accusing people of things, expect that there's going to be some kickback that's coming in. So I suggest that people find an online community, find people who are like you, like-minded, and that will hopefully support you when the eventuality happens.
Yes, it's just a system to azange thinesisikhande yakhandwa abelungu namadoda. As a result of that, you can see that there's no accommodation for us. You know, we can't breathe. There's no room for our needs. There's no room for our concerns. There's no room for our realities. And as a result of that, there's a perpetuation of our re-victimization, you know. So for me, as a way forward, I feel that we need to have a legal imbizo, a legal feminist imbizo.
That would be fun.
Where we bring together community leaders, we bring together CSOs, legal practitioners, candidate legal practitioners, legal students, academics, adjudicators, and everyone who's part of the legal justice system in the country, where we create a charter that will chart the way forward to a justice system that is anti-racist, anti-queerphobic, and anti-misogynistic, right? And that's going to make sure that the values and the principles of equity and intersectionality reign supreme.
And I like the idea, but the law is slow.
Yeah.
And it takes forever. You know, and the pampiri back and forth, in and out, get response, get 15 days. The reason why cancel culture right now is a form of access to justice for women on social media through naming and shaming is because it's quick. It's got consequences in there now. It can start trending in 5 minutes and tomorrow,
Okay. The same way in Bible. Re copy a constitution in each house. Then really balance.
My feminists, I think we're really undermining ourselves. Look at the things that we've done on our own with nothing. You know, we've even created our own mechanisms of justice for people anonymously. So, Nico, you and I are young feminists. Let's do the work that needs to be done. Let's create a society where we can own.
Fina, feminist amaholo, No, push up. Wait again. Sometimes it's
yeah.
It's fair enough.
Yeah, you know.
Let me tell you something. It's been an absolute honor to serve on this board.
Board of Feminists.
Yes, on the board of feminists. Let's try to do it again soon. Social media is fraught. It's a powerful tool of communication that can be used either for good or for bad. We have to be responsible in what we post because it has legal and personal repercussions that can be devastating professionally and financially, both for the accuser and the accused. It took 50 women accusing Harvey Weinstein, over 50 women accusing Bill Cosby, and over 50 young girls and women accusing R. Kelly before the world believed them. How many women must it take for an accusation to stick? Do we need to respect the criminal law process before we can name and shame? Maybe. The system is so broken, though, that I can easily see how sometimes social media can seem like the last resort for justice. Yes, it's complicated, But what isn't complicated is that we have to start believing women much sooner. The hashtag list just keeps growing. Enough is enough. We are done talking. Sue us all. Me too. Are you reference list? There's so many. Unless we take action and make the changes that need to be made, these hashtags mean nothing. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of feminism on this seminal TV show. There's never been anything quite like it, and we hope to see you back soon. From me and my forward, fearless sisters, Fina Kodisang, Tando Kumete, and Niko Shikwambane. Good night, South Africa, and see you soon.
Woman, don't bow down, no, no. You've got the power to claim it all, girl, it's your own. Don't let them silence you. Feminist, manifest that you're supreme. You're great to the wherever you've been. Your vision is better than anything you've seen. Standing where many have suffered and